Tonight, as the world grows quiet and the noise of the day dissolves, something ancient within you begins to awaken. Long before conscious thought learned to speak in words, the deep mind learned to speak in images, symbols, and sensations. Sleep is not an escape from life, it is a return to the inner workshop where meaning is forged. When you lie down and surrender control, you are not becoming passive, you are allowing the wiser layers of your psyche to continue the work you began while awake. During the day, the surface mind dominates. It plans, defends, explains, and repeats familiar patterns. But beneath that surface lives a deeper intelligence that is not bound by logic or time. This intelligence processes unresolved emotions, unspoken desires, hidden fears, and forgotten potentials. While you sleep, it rearranges inner fragments, seeking balance and wholeness. Dreams are not random noise, they are messages written in a symbolic language older than reason itself. If you resist this process, if you numb yourself before sleep or fear what might arise, the deep mind still works, but in distorted ways. Unintegrated material may return as anxiety, restlessness, or recurring dreams. But when you approach sleep with respect, when you allow the day to close without forcing answers, the unconscious becomes an ally rather than an adversary. It continues the dialogue you avoided during waking life, gently pushing you toward inner truth. Each night is an invitation to descend, not downward into darkness, but inward toward depth. In this descent, the ego loosens its grip and the soul is free to speak. Images appear not to confuse you, but to complete you. They reveal what consciousness alone cannot grasp: contradictions, shadowed aspects, and latent strengths waiting to be acknowledged. When morning comes, you may not remember everything that occurred within you, yet you will feel its effects: a subtle clarity, a shift in attitude, a quiet readiness to face the day differently. This is the deep mind's gift, transformation without force. Sleep further reveals its active nature. Experiences are not simply stored, they are evaluated and integrated into a larger narrative of the self. What aligns with inner values is strengthened, while what conflicts with them may return in altered form, demanding attention. This is why certain dreams repeat or intensify over time. The psyche continues working on unresolved material until it is acknowledged or transformed. Sleep becomes a continuation of inner messages are being resisted. The deep mind persists because its function is not comfort but integration. It seeks to include neglected aspects of the self, even when doing so disrupts established self-images or habits. Learning to listen does not mean decoding symbols with rigid formulas. Meaning arises through reflection, emotional honesty, and patience. A symbol reveals its significance gradually, as consciousness matures enough to receive it. When dreams and emotions are approached with curiosity rather than fear, they become guides rather than disturbances. Through this symbolic dialogue, the deep mind leads the individual toward greater inner coherence, not by giving direct answers, but by revealing what must be lived, felt, and integrated to move forward. What remains unfinished within the psyche does not disappear when the body lies down to rest. Sleep does not close the inner world, it opens it. The concerns, conflicts, and emotions left unresolved during the day continue their movement beneath the surface of awareness, freed from the constraints of conscious control. The mind carries forward what was postponed, avoided, or misunderstood, and it does so with remarkable persistence. What consciousness sets aside, the deeper layers refuse to abandon. During waking life, unresolved inner material is often held at bay through distraction, routine, or rationalization. Responsibilities demand attention, and emotional complexity is simplified to maintain functionality. Yet the psyche does not accept permanent repression without consequence. Sleep creates a condition in which defenses soften, allowing unresolved experiences to return in altered form. They appear not as clear memories, but as images, sensations, or emotional atmospheres that shape dreams and nocturnal moods. The mind continues working precisely because the work has not yet been completed. This ongoing activity is purposeful rather than chaotic. The psyche strives toward balance and coherence, even when the process feels unsettling. Inner conflicts resurface during sleep because they demand integration, not suppression. A moral contradiction, a denied desire, or a lingering grief may reappear symbolically, giving the individual another opportunity to encounter it without the pressure of immediate action. Sleep offers a psychological rehearsal space where unresolved material can be explored indirectly and safely. Recurring dreams often signal material that has resisted resolution. Their repetition is not a malfunction but an insistence. The psyche repeats what has not been heard, refining its message until it finds a form consciousness can receive. Each repetition may vary slightly, reflecting subtle shifts in the individual's readiness to understand. Even nightmares serve a function, confronting the dreamer with intense emotions that have been pushed out of waking awareness. The distress they cause mirrors the urgency of what remains unresolved. Unresolved inner material also influences the emotional tone of sleep itself. Restlessness, shallow sleep, or sudden awakenings are often linked to internal tension rather than physical causes. The mind remains active because it is engaged in unfinished business. Emotional energy seeks expression, and when denied conscious outlets, it finds nocturnal ones. In this sense, sleep disturbances can be understood as signals rather than failures, indicating areas of inner life that require attention. By morning, the effects of this nocturnal labor may be subtle yet significant. A shift in mood, a change in perspective, or unexpected insight can arise without clear explanation. These are traces of inner work completed beyond conscious awareness. When unresolved material is gradually acknowledged in waking life, sleep often becomes deeper and more restorative, not because the mind has stopped working, but because its work has found cooperation. The psyche does not rest until it is heard, and sleep is one of its MOS. Faithful arenas of persistence and transformation. To respect sleep is to recognize it as a meaningful psychological process rather than a mere biological necessity. When sleep is approached with intention and reverence, it becomes a bridge between conscious awareness and the deeper intelligence of the psyche. The unconscious does not force integration, it invites it. Respecting sleep means allowing this invitation to be answered, creating conditions in which inner wisdom can operate without resistance or interference. Modern life often treats sleep as expendable, something to be shortened, delayed, or chemically overridden. In doing so, the individual asserts the dominance of conscious will over the natural rhythms of the psyche. This imbalance fragments the self. Parts of inner life that require quiet, darkness, and surrender are deprived of the space needed to unfold. When sleep is rushed or numbed, unconscious material remains unintegrated, and the psyche compensates through tension, anxiety, or emotional volatility. Respecting sleep restores the dialogue between waking consciousness and the deeper mind. Integration occurs when disparate aspects of the self are allowed to encounter one another without immediate judgment. Sleep facilitates this encounter by softening rigid self-definitions. The roles maintained during the day lose their authority, and neglected qualities gain expression. In dreams, contradictions coexist. Strength meets vulnerability, desire meets fear, memory meets anticipation. This coexistence is not confusion but synthesis. The unconscious brings together what consciousness has kept apart, offering images and emotions that hint at a more complete inner configuration. Unconscious wisdom does not operate through direct instruction. It works through experience, symbol, and emotional resonance. By respecting sleep, the individual grants permission for this wisdom to act. This permission is expressed not only in the act of sleeping, but in the attitude brought to it. Letting go of unresolved thoughts, accepting uncertainty, and trusting the inner process create a psychological environment conducive to integration. The unconscious responds to openness with coherence, weaving fragmented experiences into a more unified sense of self. Over time, the effects of this integration become visible in waking life. Decisions feel less forced, reactions less extreme, and self-understanding more nuanced. The individual begins to act from a place of inner alignment rather than habitual defense. This is not the result of conscious effort alone, but of repeated encounters with unconscious material that has been gradually assimilated. Respecting sleep allows these encounters to occur regularly and naturally. When sleep is honored, it becomes a nightly ritual of renewal. Each descent into rest is an act of trust in the psyche's capacity for self-regulation and growth. The unconscious does not seek to undermine the conscious mind, it seeks to complete it. Through sleep, wisdom that cannot speak in daylight finds its voice, and the self is slowly shaped into a more integrated, resilient, and authentic whole. Dreams are often dismissed as chaotic or meaningless because they do not follow the rules of rational thought. Their shifting scenes, strange characters, and emotional intensity can feel disorienting, leading many to believe that dreams exist only to confuse the mind. Yet this apparent disorder conceals a deeper intention. Dreams arise from a psychological intelligence whose aim is balance rather than clarity, wholeness rather than comfort. What feels confusing to the conscious mind is often a corrective movement within the psyche, seeking to restore equilibrium where waking life has become one-sided. Conscious awareness tends to narrow perception. In order to function efficiently, it favors certain attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors while neglecting others. Over time, this selectivity creates imbalance. Qualities T. Hat do not fit, the chosen self-image are ignored or suppressed, yet they do not vanish. Dreams compensate for this imbalance by giving expression to what has been excluded. They introduce unfamiliar perspectives and challenge rigid assumptions, not to destabilize the individual, but to expand inner awareness beyond habitual limits. The symbolic nature of dreams is essential to this balancing function. Symbols allow multiple opposites to coexist within a single image. A dream figure may be both threatening and protective, both familiar and strange. This ambiguity is not a flaw, it reflects the complexity of inner life. The psyche resists simplistic resolutions because true balance requires holding tension rather than eliminating it. Dreams train the individual to tolerate paradox, gradually preparing consciousness to integrate conflicting aspects of the self. Emotional tone in dreams further reveals their orienting purpose. Feelings experienced during dreams often contrast sharply with waking attitudes. Excessive confidence during the day may be met with vulnerability at night, while suppressed sadness may surface as grief or longing. These emotional reversals function as psychological counterweights, restoring sensitivity where numbness has developed. The dream does not judge the conscious attitude, it complements it, reminding the individual of neglected dimensions of experience. Even unsettling or frightening dreams serve this integrative goal. Nightmares are often attempts to confront what has been persistently avoided. The intensity of their imagery corresponds to the strength of the resistance encountered. Rather than signaling psychological failure, such dreams indicate that the psyche is actively working to reclaim disowned material. The fear they evoke mirrors the inner distance between consciousness and what must be acknowledged for wholeness to emerge. As dream material is gradually reflected upon and allowed to influence waking awareness, its confusing quality diminishes. Patterns become visible, emotional reactions soften, and a sense of inner coherence develops. Dreams do not demand literal interpretation, they ask for honest engagement. Their purpose is not to provide answers, but to guide the individual toward a more inclusive relationship with the self. In this way, dreams function as agents of balance, quietly shaping a psyche that is broader, deeper, and more whole than conscious intention alone could ever create. True transformation is often imagined as the result of deliberate effort, discipline, and conscious decision. While intention plays a role, the most profound changes in a person's inner life rarely emerge from force or control. They arise quietly, beyond the reach of direct will, in spaces where the mind loosens its grip and allows deeper processes to unfold. Conscious effort can initiate movement, but it cannot dictate the deeper restructuring of the psyche. Transformation happens when something within is permitted to change rather than commanded to do so. The conscious mind is oriented toward clarity, predictability, and immediate results. It seeks to fix problems by identifying causes and applying solutions. Yet many inner conflicts do not yield to this approach. Emotional patterns, long-held beliefs, and ingrained reactions are shaped over years, often outside conscious awareness. Attempting to change them through sheer will can strengthen resistance, as the psyche protects itself from abrupt disruption. In such cases, effort produces tension rather than growth. Beyond conscious effort lies a different mode of change, one rooted in assimilation rather than conquest. When attention is relaxed, the deeper mind begins its own work. It reorganizes experiences, revisits unresolved material, and gradually alters internal structures. This process is subtle and often invisible while it is happening. One may feel stuck for long periods, only to discover that a shift has already occurred beneath that surface. The The individual awakens one day to find that a former struggle has lost its grip, not because it was defeated, but because it was understood and integrated. Moments of genuine transformation often arrive indirectly. A dream, a sudden emotional release, or an unexpected insight can reframe an entire inner landscape. These moments cannot be manufactured on demand. They emerge when the psyche senses readiness, when enough has been experienced, endured, and reflected upon. Conscious effort prepares the ground, but the transformation itself unfolds according to an inner timing that cannot be rushed. This does not mean passivity or resignation. Engaging life honestly, observing oneself without harsh judgment, and tolerating uncertainty all support deeper change. What is relinquished is the illusion of total control. By accepting that not all growth can be engineered, the individual creates space for unconscious wisdom to participate. In this space, rigid identities soften, emotional knots loosen, and new orientations take shape naturally. When transformation occurs beyond conscious effort, it carries a sense of authenticity. It is not performed or maintained through constant vigilance. Instead, it becomes part of the individual's way of being. Reactions shift spontaneously, values realign, and behavior changes without strain. Such transformation endures because it is rooted in the whole psyche, not just in conscious intention. By trusting the deeper process, one allows change to emerge that is quieter, slower, and far more lasting than anything force alone could achieve. As this reflection comes to a close, remember that nothing essential within you is ever truly idle. While you sleep, something wiser than effort continues the work of becoming whole. You do not need to force insight, chase transformation, or demand clarity from the darkness. What is real within you moves toward balance in its own time. Each night, when you release control and allow yourself to rest, you participate in a quiet trust that life knows how to heal itself from within. Sleep is not an ending, but a return to depth, where what is fragmented is gently gathered, where what is hidden finds expression, and where the self is patiently shaped into something more complete. Tonight, let that deeper intelligence continue its work and allow yourself to wake not with answers, but with a deeper sense of alignment and inner truth.